No one should be fooled here. As Secretary of HHS, Robert Kennedy will have the power to undercut vaccines and vaccine manufacturing across our country. And for all of his talk about follow the science and his promise that he won't interfere with those of us who want to vaccinate his kids, the bottom line is the same. Kennedy can kill off access to vaccines and make millions of dollars while he does it. Kids might die, but Robert Kennedy can keep cashing in.
Today, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. had his first confirmation hearing. Tomorrow, he's got another one, but he's not alone. This is gearing up to be a very big week for determining whether or not Donald Trump's cabinet gets confirmed. Tomorrow, we're looking at two other hearings that are likely to be contentious. Tulsi Gabbard for Director of National Intelligence and Kash Patel for Director of the FBI. Senator Elizabeth Warren, Democrat of Massachusetts, is on the Finance Committee that held today's hearing. She joins me now. Senator, it's great to see you again. Thank you for being with us this evening.
Thank you.
A bit like asking about which one's your favorite child. What worries you most about Robert F. Kennedy, the views he has, should he become the Health and Human Services Secretary?
You know, it's right where the little clip was that you did. To understand this, if he's put in charge of Health and Human Services, he has a whole toolbox of ways that he very quietly can undermine vaccines and vaccine manufacturers, and he can get rich doing it. If he does that, he can stand there, smile at you, and say, no, he's fine. Anybody can vaccinate the kids that they want to. But he literally could bankrupt the vaccine manufacturers with the power he will have. And since he's got a financial incentive to do that, we cannot trust him in that job.
And we talked about this a little bit in my last segment about what happened in American Samoa. The idea that that he sort of cashed in and kids did die. You don't have to be a scientist to understand the relationship between these things. This is a really worrisome issue. This isn't even the same as everybody getting vaccinated for COVID. Not vaccinating kids for provably diseases that you can vaccinate them against getting, even by a couple of percent, changes the entire game.
Yep. Understand this. What Robert Kennedy did when he came into Samoa, there was already a problem. There'd been malpractice, and vaccine had been mixed with another drug, and 2 children had died. And obviously, Robert Kennedy had nothing to do with that.
Correct.
But vaccinations were dropping. Kennedy comes to town and he meets with the Prime Minister. They talk about vaccines. He meets with the anti-vax group. They say it was transformative, and vaccinations keep going down. And then we know exactly what happens. Vaccinations go down, a measles outbreak hits, and then kids start dying. And here's the deal. They start dying. The Prime Minister declares a national emergency, and Robert Kennedy doubles down. He sends a letter after 16 kids have died within 4 days of declaring this national emergency and says, it probably isn't the vaccine. It maybe isn't the vaccine, the measles outbreak. Maybe the problem here is that vaccine itself is so dangerous. And then he comes back, and the outfit that he has put together keeps spreading that lie, so much so that the World Health Organization gets engaged, looks at all the science, and bats it back. They said there's just no foundation for what he's saying. And yet what it does is it not only more than 70 kids died in Samoa, 70 people died in Samoa, it's also what it does around the world, because it gave fuel to the anti-vax, oh my gosh, all those people died in Samoa, and the problem was not the failure to vaccinate. They're promoting the idea that the problem was the vaccine itself, and that backs people off from vaccinating at all. Then that fits in to he gets paid for these lawsuits against these vaccine manufacturers. And those guys operate on really thin margins. So you keep suing those guys, and he has reason to do that. He's able to rake in money on that. And that means potentially those vaccine manufacturers just say, we're not doing vaccines. And that means then you can't vaccinate your kids. I can't see that my grandkids get vaccinated, and that's a problem for all of us.
So we heard the testimony. We heard all of you senators say, we've got the tape, we've got the transcript, we've got the podcast. We know all of that exists. But he doesn't seem particularly imperiled in terms of having this nomination be approved.
No. And, that's what's happening here over and over with these nominees. We did this with Secretary of Defense. We're now doing this with the Secretary of Health and Human Services, really demonstrating in a very public way, not just how unqualified these people are, but how disqualified these people are for these public offices that they've been nominated to. Any other time, the Republicans would have been the first to lead the charge against these folks. But instead, they may squirm, they may look uncomfortable, but so far, their loyalty to Donald Trump is ahead of their loyalty to the American people.
I want to ask you, because it's an area that you're very involved in. Yesterday, in response to the Trump administration very confusing memo freezing federal funds that had already been appropriated by Congress, you posted, "We do not consent to this lawless power grab." Today, as we've reported, the administration rescinded the memo, but the executive orders remain in place that include the freezing of all foreign aid, all funds to federal grantees who receive money for any DEI-related purposes, all money appropriated through the Inflation Reduction Act. What's your take on this?
I just want to remind everyone what this is really about. This is about the preschools that get a little federal funding calling us and saying, can we still open tomorrow, or would that be a violation of this edict from Donald Trump? This is about one of my places out in Western Mass that works with homeless vets. They genuinely want to know, can they feed those vets tonight? And how are they going to pay the rent in 3 days? Another place that we've got that works with severely disabled adults and provides care all day long for them and a place for them to be. Their portal is shut down because they get some federal funding. So we're talking about real effects on people all over this country. If it's not you directly, it's your friends, it's your neighbors, it's little kids, it's seniors in nursing homes, all of whom are told that if you're getting federal funding, we're just going to take it away from you. That is not only lawless, it is cruel. And the amount of pain and dislocation for these people over the last 24 hours has truly been something awful, just even to live through secondhand. So Donald Trump and his team are still out there scrambling because they've discovered the American people really don't like this and are pushing back. And the Democrats in Congress, we're trying to push back right alongside them and say, we're going to hold Donald Trump accountable. He has to follow the law, and he's got to follow through on what we have already passed, laws to make sure that those little kids can still go to their nursery schools and that old people can still stay in their nursing homes and that our homeless vets can still get the help that they need.
Senator